Counterfeit board games, are they a problem? Many say yes. This is Roll for Crit, and today we are going to talk to you about this epidemic of counterfeit board games in the board game industry, how several companies have reported losing sales to counterfeit versions of games on Amazon through third-party sellers and in other places, and how it's affecting consumers buying these games and being disappointed or maybe not even realizing that they have a counterfeit product in stock for them. This is an interesting subject, especially from my point of view, because it's something that I feel like hasn't really been talked about, whether how big the issue has been. It certainly seems to be getting really big just in this past year. And now it seems almost all over the place. I see people talking about how to find these counterfeits. Where are they? What do they look like? What's the differences between them? What's your take on this problem?
Yeah, so for us, I think where this really became big caught to our attention was actually there was an interview with Asmodee about this, and which they discussed how it's been affecting them. And I know they said like it's affected up to 70%, I believe was the number they said of their.
They said for some games they believe, then this is important wording, because they said they believe up to 70% of the sales. They also said they believe that they could be losing between $5 and $10 million a year. I want to clear that was an M, not a B, kind of slurred. $1 million a year to counterfeits, which is not a small number.
It is not. Though I will say, I don't know about the problem is they gave us the numbers, not really the numbers that back it.
There was no actual chart or sales data to go with
Which is why, like, part of me's like, is this more feared? Because that's a great motivator. In addition, like, for example, if they said some games could be 70%, what if there's a game that sold 10 copies because no one, and 70%?
Very true.
But I'm not gonna lie that I'm not surprised that if some of them are big. In particular, another reason why it's like, I also agree with them is because they're not the only ones complaining about this. Rio Grande has mentioned that their game, Dominion, has had a lot of issues with this. By the way, Asmodee is the big one. I know the big one they mentioned was Seven Wonders, one which we actually just did a video review for, the actual game. So
just in time for you to go out and buy a counterfeit copy.
Yep.
Well, let's think about from their perspective, right? The people selling these knockoffs can sell them a lot cheaper because they're not high quality components, which damages them. And B, someone might buy one that's really crappy and think, oh, this is a bad company because these chips are falling apart and the cards are really thin, when in reality that's not the case.
Well, actually, there's also a C and D there. C is the components, they aren't safety, or at least safety checked to whatever the board game, actual board game company standards are. So we don't know what they're made with. And D, because they're cheaper, then not only does the game company, but like retailers might have to, are forced to sell them at a lower price.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to come in with an E and an F. No, not really. No, yeah. So let's
look at each of those.
There's a lot to take in there. I mean, so I can understand why, from a publisher perspective, they don't like counterfeits. Right. Honestly, I can understand from everyone's perspective. Like, it sounds like I'm about to argue like for counterfeits. There is no argument for them. They're definitely bad. I think it's pretty crazy. I think the only kind of counter argument is, how big of a problem are they really? Are they as widespread as maybe it seems, or is it a few cases that are the exception?
Well, they've said it hits all their games, most of the games, like in variety, but definitely things like Dominion, Seven Wonders that we mentioned before, because they're card games. They're really easy to just print off. And I do think it's somewhat of a problem, because I've actually heard this in other industries. In fact, I think one of the hilarious ones is Transformers Figures, literally like the factory that makes this toy, like this $500 toy, will make the molds and make a $100 version of that. And like for a lot of people, it's like, that's $100 though. So
it's funny, other industries. Like I was thinking, you don't hear about counterfeit video games because that doesn't make sense. Although someone could like print a box.
I guess online you see maybe some weird like maybe stolen assets.
If people didn't know how to download a video game, one person could just burn it to DVDs, I guess. And same with movies. It's really physical things.
Well, that's because we pirate those.
Right. Until people get 3D printers in their home, then maybe pirating board games will really be a thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's really fast. It's like something I just never even thought about.
Well, and actually, I was thinking about with that 70% number. If they're also thinking about, because for example, something like Netrunner or not Rising Sun, wow, Legend of the Five Rings. To have a full play set, you need 3 copies. I wonder if they're counting on people who are like, I'm just going to photocopy like a few of these cards and just use proxies.
Hey, if you're sleeving them all anyway.
That is the big problem with the card market because you have to be really careful then about the pricing and stuff. Magic the Gathering came up, and I know they are really tough on their, like, they have all these weird things, like they have a foil on their card. The way you can actually tell by the way it bends the materials and
That's
stuff.
an even bigger deal for them because they have tournaments and money at stake.
Oh yeah, no, that becomes a big deal. I remember back, a while ago, but there was a final test. You could actually rip your card to see if it was a fake or not.
That's a test. That is the final test. There's no more after that. So we've covered publishers. Retailers is another interesting one. As you said, Cool Stuff Inc. actually released a statement officially declaring about their kind of quality control, that they wouldn't sell counterfeits. They make sure they don't have counterfeits.
No, I do really think 90% of these are going to come, at least online sales, are going to come from Amazon, honestly.
Yeah.
Because they have the whole third-party market thing. And I don't know about you, but trying to buy some stuff that isn't obviously stocked, like a light bulb. But like when you buy some stuff, you'll be like, that's a little expensive or weird. And then you realize that's not Amazon, even if it has Prime next to it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely have experienced that before. And yeah, that's where you can run into these shady things. And that's why we also have heard about some of these board game publishers limiting who can sell their stuff on Amazon. So I guess that's a start for what they're trying to do.
And that's why I feel like if there's a site that, like Cool Stuff, if there was a site that focused a bit more on board games, odds are they probably only get from board game distributors, which means it's very unlikely that they are getting from a counterfeit source. Though it could be true. I think that actually happened with, what's the card game? See, it's not Cards Against Humanity, but Super Fight.
Super Fight.
Like they were having counterfeit issues, so they literally, what their response was, stop printing. They literally stopped printing and see who was still selling cards.
I kind of remember that, actually.
Yeah, our distributor actually told us that back when we were with our store.
Yeah, that is a funny and good way to do it. It's a way to find the source, for sure. You sent me some really interesting images of some of the comparisons between these two different versions of a counterfeit versus a real game.
But the thing is, it wasn't a card game. This was Pandemic Legacy.
Yes. In the counterfeit version, the cards were a lot thicker, and they were very difficult to shuffle because of that.
And the cubes were actually sharper corners. He actually filed them down.
So it could, even whether it's a cheap game with just cards, even still, your gameplay could be made worse because of that. But it is crazy. I looked at those pictures, and most of it is just the colors off, and I would never figure it out.
No, exactly. And going on to the next point, going back to the quality control. Mm-hmm. At first, when I read that, I'm like, really? But then I had to go back, like, even not including kids, how many adults stuck a Nintendo cartridge in their mouth when they're, doing like. So if there is something like even more lead in the paint or something, that's the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, there could be. It could be bad. It could have bad effects. It seems something you laugh about, but we've done stupid stuff. So
and interestingly, I think probably one of the biggest counters to this, and I think one of the reasons Asmodee is one of the most vocal, is because I think one of the biggest counters is Kickstarter, in that a lot of board game companies now, it's direct from them, and you're buying it from them.
Well, what's interesting
is Asmodee doesn't do as many.
A lot of people have equivalently dealt with counterfeiters in a way with fake fake Kickstarters where you pledge and then the people just disappear.
that's a whole different version of counterfeiting.
It was really funny reading the forums because I do think a lot of people were just angry at Asmodee. They just they're such a big company, they don't need the money or something. Which is funny because they are the huge company. They're the behemoth of the board game world.
Like stealing a loaf of bread from a Walmart, right? It's like, oh no.
But it is something to look at, and I just wish, my problem is really, I wish that we could see more of the numbers behind it, because then it'd be like, look, this is how we got 70, this is where we got the numbers, and we'd be like, okay, that makes sense, this is where you're getting this from.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where a lot of it falls. But we do need to look at, because as I said, it's not just Asmodee complaining, so it's not like just they're making up ghost stories or something.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of actual people who have been affected by it, not corporations. If you're one of those people, let us know, because that's really sad. Share your stories of woe.
Where did you come across the Counterfeit game? How'd you get it, or if a friend got it?
And if you are one of these board game companies and you have any kind of data or numbers or charts to release about this, please release that stuff, because it's fascinating to think about and read about. And the more open people are about it, maybe everybody can help kind of put a stop to it and more awareness out there. That's really, I think, the key thing is now you got to make sure people know. Make sure you're buying from the right people. Be careful, because it's tough. It's tough to know. Hey, again, let us know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This has been Roll for Crit.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave some comments down below.
Yeah.